Hi, Coach. Molly Walsh with the Tuscaloosa News. We're working on a research project on should your kid play high school football, why or why not? And I wanted to know your take on it and then the reasoning behind it.
What'd you say early? Should a kid play high school football?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I don't see why he wouldn't. You know, in our state, you know, Texas high school football is a part of life, and it's not a privilege to play. It's an honor to play. Guys come up playing little league football in our state and going from town to town, playing different towns, and you end up representing, you know, your city, your little hamlet of where that is, and people are proud of that. Now, I know there's been some concern right now. I think as coaches, the way we coach the game and the things that are in place right now, the game couldn't be any safer. I know we coach differently. I coach differently because of some of the targeting rules and some of the things that have come about. And I know that there's some concern. But there's also some things that you learn by playing football that are life lessons that have nothing to do with football. It has to do with teamwork. It has to do with camaraderie. It has to do with trusting somebody. And, you know, one guy screws up, the whole thing's bad. And be able to handle that. So, you know, I don't see why it wouldn't be a situation that everybody would want to be in. What was the second one?
That was it. You answered perfectly.
Okay.
But since I have you, talk to me about playing Alabama this season. Alabama.
We play them at home.
Yeah, I know.
That's a long ways away.
Okay.
We play UCLA the first game.
Left side here, second row on the aisle.
Kevin, how did it make you feel when you heard of Scott Woolward's comments on the Feinbaum show earlier in May?
It doesn't make me any different. You know, I've known Scott a long time. We've had a lot of different conversations before that, after that. You know, I was just in a big room talking about it and just saying, hey, you know what, you know, I put all kinds of pressure on myself. And guys in here have been around me know that. You know, I told some interesting stories in there, but you know, that's part of coaching. You know that when you get into it. What somebody writes, what somebody says, or whatever happens is not going to change how I do my job. So from that standpoint, you know, I get a lot of things yelled at me all the time. I'm used to that, and that's just part of doing this job.
Let's go here, left side in the back in the red blazer.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good.
Good. After playing Alabama, it seems like after that, your season kind of goes a little crazy, up and down a little bit. Can you talk about what have you done during this off season to see how can you fix that?
Yep. Yeah, I talked about that a little bit in there, just about, you know, the leadership that we're getting right now from, can I move some of this stuff here? I can't. The leadership we're getting right now from a lot of our older players who have been through that the last couple years. And then what we've done in the off season with hiring Mark Hockey and trying to address that immediately in January. And you know, it's not just that, but it's November. We understand that. What we're doing, to answer your question, I think Mark has brought another sense of urgency to the table, not just the 15 practices that we have as coaches, but the other days, what we're doing in strength and conditioning, and what the emphasis are about finishing and toughness. And so, you know, that has been a point of emphasis in the off season, as it has been before, but maybe now it's more of a point throughout the season with strength and conditioning and bringing that to the table. And we have guys now that understand it, that understand, hey, look, here's what's happened. Here's what coach is doing to try to fix it. Here's what we have to do right now. And when you sign 29 guys like we did, over a third of your team's freshmen, that you bring them into a situation where they understand from the older guys what needs to happen. in what's important to them. And our older guys have done a great job of embracing these guys because they want them to play. They want to create depth for the football team. Instead of him playing 60 or 70 snaps a game, they'd rather play 40. And I think, maybe 3 years ago, there's probably a little animosity in the team when we brought talented guys in and guys thinking they're going to take their jobs. Whereas I think the Christian Kirks, the Armani Watts, the guys you see here this week, understanding, hey, it's to our benefit to play less snaps and have talented guys here, and then what we do in the offseason becomes more important than what we do during the season, and that whole mentality carries it through. So understanding that is part of a maturation process that, I think players have to understand, and I think also that I had to understand, and that, this league's different, and, what you're doing. We haven't been great, but we haven't been horrible either. And there's a lot of people that would love to have our record. Seeing how there's only 2 coaches that won more than 8 games in the last 5 years left in this league, and that is stability. But we need to make the next step. In order to make the next step, we had to make some changes to do that, and I think our players understand that, and certainly our coaches understand that, because I understand that.
Let's go to the left side here, second row.
2 questions, Coach. The first one, you're the son of a coach, a legendary coach at that. Do you, does it stoke your competitive fires? Does it burn, start something up in your belly, so to speak, to be doubted, to be questioned? Or are you more of just an even keel guy? Like, look, we're going to be slow, steady. We're going to do this thing. We're going to, run the race that's out in front of us, regardless of what people may say, this guy, media, whatever. Do you respond to that when people doubt you, or no?
No, I'm more of an even keel guy. I think, I've seen it all. So in 30 years of doing this, you'd be great. I had the same guy tell me the other day, he said, hey, let me tell you something. You don't read message boards, don't do this, don't do that. I was like, why not? You need to know what's going on. And I said, I do read the paper, I do watch sports, I do watch that. He goes, but don't read the other stuff. I said, why? He said, well, because number one, when things are going good, you ain't never been that good. And when things are going bad, you ain't never been that bad. And so there's only extremists left out there for that. And that was pretty good advice by the same guy I was talking about out there. And obviously he means a lot to me, Joe Tiller. But, you stay pretty even keel that way. And I think when you're like that, and I've told young coaches this before, and anybody in business, you manage, if you're a manager or if you're a leader, you need to be yourself. Mm-hmm. Because in times of crisis or in times of when there's a serious situation that goes up, and the real you's coming out. Mm-hmm. And if the real you is somebody that people haven't seen, it scares the hell out of them. Mm-hmm. So, you manage your way, and with that, I'm always going to be the same guy. Mm-hmm. And I think because of that, we've been able to navigate through a lot of different things, not just since I've been at Texas A&M, but since I've been a head coach.
Has the conversation been any different with your offensive or defensive coordinator coming into this season in seasons past?
No, I think schematically we've talked. But, from a defensive standpoint, there's no question we need to be able to stop the run, and we need to be a better run defense. And what that looks like, we've talked about that way back in January, February, before we got to spring football. The conversations we have are more schematic and more about recruiting. That's a day-to-day situation. So, that's where that is, and that's not going to change. But, I think everybody understands that, the things that, as I've said before, my job is to take the things that we do well, stay ahead of the curve, and the things that we're not doing so well to fix them. Or go down the road to that path of what we need to do to fix them. And those are the kind of conversations we've had. You bet.
Next up, left side on the aisle, third row. Name and affiliation, please.
Cameron Ruther, KCOU Sports Columbia coach. 5 seasons in the SEC now. Can you elaborate what you felt your program and the Missouri Tigers have brought to the SEC and what you think you can continue to bring moving forward?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we've been good fits. I mean, you look at what Missouri did when they first got in the league and getting to the East and winning the East. I mean, I think we've brought some passion and some things to the West that a lot of people, a lot of coaches, a lot of fans like coming to our place. I think we're both a good fit as far as location. We're not one of those leagues where we're flying all over the damn place to try to play in the same league. It's all pretty reasonable. I think it's not just football. You watch the SEC Network and you look at all the teams that Missouri's fielding and what we're fielding that are competing for championships in this league. It's been good for both parties. Financially, you look at where we are right now as opposed to where it was when I got the job and the things that have happened at Texas A&M. Would that have happened if we'd have stayed in the same league? I don't know. But I do know what's happened since we joined the SEC. And, it's been, I think both universities have benefited from the SEC, and I think the SEC has benefited from both universities.
We have time for one quick last question. Second row here, Matt.
Matt Stevens, Montgomery Advertiser. Kevin, Auburn's got a transfer quarterback in Jared Studham that needs to get the locker room bought into him. I'm curious, with your program last year, how Trevor Knight was able to do that when I'm sure guys were looking at him going, dude, you haven't done anything in here. How are you going to tell me what to do?
Well, it was kind of funny. The first team meeting, our guys walked in, and Trevor was sitting in the front row, right in the middle, right in front of me, and guys were walking in and they were like, hey, wasn't that the guy that was playing at Oklahoma? They didn't even know his name. And so they just knew him as the guy that played at Oklahoma. And he just kind of blended in. He's a guy that is a leader, is a born leader. And, he's a guy that actually he was committed to A&M before I got there. And I didn't know that. I was too busy with my other job. And then somehow, Bob wrestled him away, and then I got there and I was like, what the hell? Why did we let this guy go? But he's what Trevor did was come in, blend in, didn't try to take over right away. Led by example, was an older guy that some other guys would follow naturally. And I think, some guys have what I call it right off the bat. And there's a fine line between it and being a jerk. Right? Yeah, you guys know what I'm saying. And so I talk to our players about that all the time. There's a big difference. The ones with IT, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So, and that's a gift. And, Jarrett is a really, really positive, good young man. And I think any time a guy sits out or you look at what happened with Trevor, to have the success that he had against Alabama, and to go through all that and then to lose his job to Baker Mayfield was a humbling experience. I think what happened with Jarrett and getting hurt, and then having the coaching change and having to go to junior college and having to do all that, when you sit out, it's like anything else. When you truly don't understand until something's taken away from you, and then you have an appreciation like no other. And so, the ability to come back and do that could be similar stories. And, Jarrett's a mature guy, and he'll figure it out.
All right, that's all we have time for. Thanks, Coach.
You bet.